Good morning, guys, and welcome back for the very last chapter of What Was Pearl Harbor. Chapter 10, Joining the War. Yamamoto expected his attack to break the enemy's will to fight. He was wrong. Just the opposite happened. Doubts about entering World War II disappeared instantly. The United States had been attacked. Now the war had come home to Americans. On December 8th, in the Capitol building, President Roosevelt addressed Congress. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a day which will live in infamy, he began. The United States was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation. Millions of Americans heard the news on the radio. The president's words spoke to the heart of Americans' anger. Americans thought it was dishonorable for Japan to attack without first declaring war. And it was unthinkable that Japan would make war while talking peace. The president asked Congress to declare war against Japan. They answered with a resounding yes. The United States would also join forces with the Allies to fight the Nazis. We can do it. Tens of thousands of men enlisted in the services. Women stepped up to fill their jobs at home. American factories worked for the war effort. Japanese-American camps. In the United States, feeling of anger and suspicion against the Japanese ran high after Pearl Harbor. 2 months after the attack, President Roosevelt made a terrible decision. He ordered all Japanese Americans living on the West Coast to be put in prison camps. More than 110,000 innocent people were forced to live behind barbed wire for the rest of the war. 2/3 of them had been born in the United States. No one in the camps was ever found guilty of wrongdoing. They were loyal U.S. citizens. In 1988, the U.S. government finally apologized to all Japanese Americans for this tragedy. Money was sent to those who were kept in camps, and a fund was set up to teach the lessons of this shameful affair. By the end of World War II, factory workers had made almost 300,000 new planes and more than 2,500 ships. The Pacific Fleet was restored. 6 of the 8 bombed battleships at Pearl Harbor were repaired and put back into service. After the Pearl Harbor attack, Japan seized more land in Southeast Asia and the Pacific. But in June of 1942, America won an important battle against Japan at the island of Midway. 4 of Japan's 6 aircraft carriers were destroyed. After that, the tide started to turn against Japan. In Europe, the fighting finally ended in May of 1945. Germany surrendered, but the Japanese had not. America wanted the war to be over. So on August 6th of 1945, the new U.S. President, Harry Truman, gave the order to drop an atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. 3 days later, another was dropped on Nagasaki. These bombs were like no weapon the world had ever seen. Think of how much bigger a basketball is than a pea, and you will have some idea of how much more power an atomic bomb is next to a regular bomb. In an instant, whole neighborhoods disappeared. Only one building was left standing in Hiroshima. In an instant, 250,000 Japanese citizens were killed, men, women, and children. They were not soldiers. They were just ordinary people. 6 days after the bombing of Nagasaki, the Japanese surrendered. World War II came to a bitter end. Was Truman's decision to drop atomic bombs on Japan the right thing to do? That question has been debated since 1945. Yes, it ended the war, but what about wars in the future? Now enemies had the power to wipe each other off the face of the earth. Since 1945, peace efforts around the world have worked to make sure atomic bombs are never used again. All told, from the onset of World War II in 1939 to its end, 50 to 70 million people died. More than 400,000 were Americans. For the United States, World War II started on that sunny Sunday at Pearl Harbor. The broken hull of the Arizona is now the site of a war memorial. Each year, 1.5 million visitors board boats to view the sunken remains of the ship in the clear blue harbor water. They come to honor the 1,177 men whose bodies are still inside the Arizona. Many of the visitors to the memorial are Japanese. Today, Japan and America are close friends and strong allies. But sides suffered. They suffered terrible in the war. The memory of that war now binds both countries together in peace. I'll leave it on this just a second if you would like to read through the timeline of the Pearl Harbor attack. And then also the timeline of World War II. And that, my friends, is the end. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me. Guys, this was the first time I had read this book as well, but war history is something that I very much enjoy. And I'll tell you that I found out new information by reading this book too that I wasn't aware of before. So, if you want to pause the screen, here is, and I know my camera is a little too close, but here are the here is the AR information. The AR level, which is a 5.4, and it was read to you. So even if you're below that level, you should still be able to take the test. It is worth 1 point, and here is the quiz number. That makes it a little easier for you guys to take it instead of having to type in the title of the book. Stay tuned because starting tomorrow, we're going to start a brand new book. See you guys.